I remember them saying that, you know, like we've always had films from Australia that were too slow, but we've never had a film from Australia that's too fast. So I think they went away and then cut the film for speed.
Tony Patterson and George started work virtually straight after production finished in cutting, and Tony cut work for about 5 months, and then George and another Melbourne freelance editor called Cliff Hayes worked on it for a further 3 months, and then George and I came in and we did the final fine cut.
I was cutting the picture in the kitchen and he was cutting the sound in the lounge room.
They were arguing. I wasn't in the cutting room, but they recounted the arguments, you know, where George wanted to use a shot where Max looked a bit vulnerable and sensitive. And Byron said, no way, you know, Max is invincible, he doesn't crack. Byron shared the vision insofar as it's possible for a producer to share a director's vision.
My main interest was in cutting the film as a silent movie, even the dialogue scenes, so that if the movie played purely as a silent movie, I knew it would play with sound and music.
We spent a lot of time on the sound, something like 5 months full time on the soundtracks, because we had this film that was highly visual, very, very fast moving, lots of scene changes, therefore you need lots of sound to live up to that sort of imagery on the screen. We wanted a score that was essentially a traditional Hollywood score. We wanted to be very grand and very spectacular and very big, and we didn't have any idea of who was capable of doing that in Australia. And then one night we happened to be at Richard Franklin's and he popped on a cassette.
It sounded a lot like Bernard Herrmann, but it was the score to his movie Patrick. I said, I didn't know that Bernard Herrmann scored that. He said, it's not Bernard Herrmann, it's Brian May. And Brian May was a conductor and a composer who'd worked for the ABC and had very popular TV shows, you know, for a long time in Australia. I said, Brian May wrote that? And he said, yeah. So
we got Brian May in very early on in post-production, and he came and looked at certain viewings and cuts.
I would get a tape recorder, play the reel, and I'd tape, you know, my notes to the movie, and I'd talk about feelings, and quite often I'd make noises which were meant to be music, like here it's really scary, so the music's going dun 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 dun, and now it's quiet, and you know, and then he'd get these and somehow make sense of them enough to write a score, and he wrote the score, and it really, really did lend so much to the movie. I mean, just very, very, very strong, and I relied on the music so much to basically glue it together. It had a kind of a fervour and intensity that felt just right for that movie. Byron did all the sound editing, and he and Roger Savage mixed it together.
We knew that if we went for a conventional mix, and the conventional mixing studio would be there for weeks and weeks and weeks because of the requirements of the soundtrack. We wanted to experiment and give the soundtrack much more body and much more sort of oomph. And to do that, we really required the facility that exists here at Armstrong because it doesn't exist anywhere else.
It was the first ever film mixed to time code, and subsequently that's what Lucas started up at Skywalker Ranch, and Roger went off and mixed, I think, the third Star Wars movie there.
When I saw the first assemblage of footage, I had my car, but I was just too excited. I couldn't drive. I walked through South Melbourne for about an hour. I was just so extraordinarily excited with what I'd seen.